In an exciting all Tesla episode, we talk about their big profitable quarter, demand levers for Model 3, and version 9 software for all Tesla vehicles.
Let's go! Dipping in my Tesla. 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 Dipping in my Tesla.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to another episode of Supercharged Podcast. Got most of the team with us today. Ryan, David, Angela. Cam couldn't make it. He wanted to be here, but he's going on a trip this week. We've been really bogged down, I guess, with a lot of different stuff going on. A lot of information to unpack, though. Profitable Tesla quarter and blowout profitability compared to all the estimates coming out. They really knocked it out of the park, moved earnings up like 2 weeks because they were so excited about making the announcement. David got married Friday night.
Got married.
And then this is Sunday afternoon. We're filming or recording this. And he came right back. We kind of just threw it together this morning. I sent him a text, we're going to come and do it. And he wanted to get out of the house, I guess.
Well, no.
That sounds a little harsh.
Not like I need to get out of the house, but I will say I need to fill my time with something now because the last weeks have consumed as a second job of wedding planning. So I needed something to do. So I've
do you
got
feel
all
like
this
you can
free
take
time.
a deep breath now?
Yeah.
And relax.
I don't know what to do with myself.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
I felt like I sent you a couple Tesla-related texts in the last couple weeks, and I felt like my thought process on sending it to you was like, you know what, he'd probably like to get his mind off of over-consuming planning for a minute or two.
Yeah. But then I'm like, oh, I got this stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the best part was actually at the, that's not right.
I was going to say,
that's
that was not the
best
best part.
The best podcast-related part to the wedding is that at the end of the wedding, Angela and Ryan treated Cody and myself to a ride home in a Model X. So we left in style from our wedding with the Falcon Wing doors up, and we looked pretty classy. So.
In the pouring rain, unfortunately.
Well, the doors, turns out they do a good job of covering you as you get in. So that was a lot of fun. Good. And Cody is definitely more than convinced because, he already liked the road trip we did in the Model 3. Oh. And now, he's like, that Model X, he's like, oh, that's real nice. He's like, it's too big,
you're
but
in
it's
for,
real
I was going
nice.
to say, you're in for
He'd
an
never been in
expensive...
one before. He
hadn't ridden one before, no.
Was the only time you rode it that day I got the loaner?
Yeah, that's the only time
That's the only time I've been in one too, I think.
No,
that's
we test drove one.
Oh yeah. That was right. We did the test drive years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That was a lot of fun. So all you Model X owners that exist out there, it's a pretty cool car. We like that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, obviously the best part in general to the wedding was that we got married.
Yep.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, the open bar was pretty cool too.
It was.
Okay, yeah.
Ryan definitely took advantage of that, but it was a beautiful wedding. I cried more than I cried at our wedding.
Yeah, it was a great ceremony for sure.
It was really good.
Very clever. A lot of things on your part. And
we're just so happy for you two.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, anyway, podcast profitability. Let's start with there. Third quarter earnings report. GAAP net income, but if you don't know what GAAP net income, it's like a generalized accounting practices. I'm sure it's a 500-page rule book of exactly how they have to claim earnings to kind of stop them from knocking numbers around however they want. $312 million in profitability. The non-GAAP income was $516 million. It was almost $2 earnings per share, and I think that I had been following in the weeks leading up. The Wall Street analyst, the best I saw was like a 35-cent earnings per share, which would have been, I don't know, $40-50 million or something, which was, I was expecting that somewhere in that category, but they really seemed to knock that out of the park there with the 312, and it really broke down to the kind of catch that the analysts knew the sales because they reported all the car deliveries earlier. So it was the profit margin on the Model 3s, which was over 20%, which was, I think, like a stated longer-term goal. But in the short term, They didn't think they could get to that, so it was really kind of achieving a lot of manufacturing efficiencies that they actually did even achieve here in their first huge quarter of Model 3 production as a really mass-produced car. Free cash flow was $881 million, which brought them up to an operating cash flow of about $1.5 billion. That kind of, I think, doesn't account for reinvestment into R&D kind of stuff and CapEx stuff, so long-term capital expenses, factories, machines, stuff like that. So, I mean, they did really good. The stock price in just the last week's gone from like $250 to like $335 a share. So it really seems to be like this could be the quarter that really puts them out. And stuff in the conference call, Elon said, we expect to be profitable every quarter from here forward, except maybe some debt repayment quarters. I think it's like February, they have a pretty big $1.5 billion thing due.
But the next quarter, they at least another one.
Right.
Right? Because when I hear you talk about this cash, I'm like, you have to have cash on hand to buy stuff for another factory. Like if you're going to make a Model Y, you're going to need another factory because, sorry, I'm going on a tangent. I think it's comical that, how many color choices are there now for like 3 for a Model 3 or
Right.
S or X?
Right.
I'm exaggerating, but there's definitely like, 5 or 6 now?
Right.
Which doesn't feel like, in comparison to most cars, a lot of choice.
But why? I mean, if you're
the
selling
paint
cars,
factory
if
is
you're
at
selling all the cars you can.
maximum.
Right.
It's like they can't deal with more colors and dealing with that. So to me, it sounds like they are starting to outgrow some of the capabilities of their factory.
Sure.
And so, like they have to make some investments. So, I mean, cash on hand sounds like a good thing
Right.
in order that they have
But there's debt structures, that they can continue to take on, to do that factory thing. I think we'll talk about that in a second too. In the end of the conference call, Model Y, Elon confirmed that he had finalized production for Model Y. And we were just talking about before we came on the air here that we think the estimated unveiling, like the Model 3 one is going to be on the Ides of March, which we believe is March 15th.
Yeah. We hope that, though, right?
Yeah.
Of 2019.
Yeah.
Right.
With actual shipments expected
like
2020.
2020,
early 2020.
Early 2020, yeah.
Which is quicker than the Model 3 turnaround.
Right.
Yeah.
But a couple things I read this week said that the Model 3 unveiling, which that would have been, was that 2016? That was like April 1st, 2016 or something like that. That there was no final production. Remember they said like June, they ended up finalizing that like 3 months after. So it sounds like they're further along with Model Y than they were when they made the 3 unveiling. So it sounds like they can turn it around. They've probably also learned a lot from the Model 3 gear up, of how to suddenly start making a bunch of a car, So I think you might see that actually pretty close to on deadline. Maybe better than Tesla's performed on deadline
In the past?
Yeah.
Well, like 9 months, basically, that sounds like optimistically 9 months, but let's say it slips to 12. That's more on par with a major automaker from like, here's the car to
Right.
Yeah.
go buy one.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, now I'm going to have to decide if I want to.
Right.
Ryan and I were discussing this the other day.
Well, we're getting.
the Model Y was like my dream car, and then
Yeah.
now I have my 3, and I actually love it more than I
Well,
expected.
as much as I love my S, we'll get to it in a bit. I mean, we're getting.
We'll get there, Ryan. Hold
get
on.
Sorry.
So there might be a place for the 3 to go at some point. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it there. But yeah. So continuing, on the conference call, and David, you pointed out that they're kind of playing a good marketing word game here. But just to see that the charts they give and the stats they like to say is Model 3 by volume, number of cars sold last quarter, was the number 5 car in the United States. The 4 cars ahead of it, Toyota Camry, Honda Civic, Honda Accord, Toyota Corolla. I mean, those are like the most common cars you see anywhere.
For sure.
Now, your little
Well, I mean, it's like a passenger car, as in
Right.
a sedan.
Sure.
So, like, you're constraining. It's not like they added, just automobile so if you add the CRV and the RAV4 to this list,
I'm sure the
it's
F1,
going to
I'm sure the
plummet.
F-150 would do great.
Right,
you know,
all
you
those
throw that in
trucks.
there, sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Ford Explorer, I'm sure all that's up there. But that's very impressive because you got to remember the price points of those cars, right? The Model 3 is, I'm doing quotations. You can't see that on a podcast, but $35,000 car. It's not. I mean, it's a $50,000 car right now, minimum. The rest of those cars, the Corolla is probably a little higher, but the Camry, the Civic, and the Accord are all like low 20s, maybe starting price. I don't have the exact numbers. 25.
Yeah, probably mid to high 20s on the Camry Accord.
Once you start hitting options, sure. The Corolla might be in the 30s. I would think.
Oh, that's the cheaper
Is it?
one actually than the
Than
Camry.
the Camry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That one is, as you said, in the low 20s.
Okay, but I mean, still, that's a major difference in between those two cars. So revenue-wise,
Right.
the Model 3 was, and I mean by far, the biggest car last quarter.
Yeah.
You're looking at those numbers, over $3 billion in revenue. The next up is Camry at $2 billion in revenue. So, I mean, that's a huge number. And I mean, those are major automobiles that have been around for a long time, That's very interesting. The other thing I found very interesting, I think it's on the second page of the report you have in front of you there, is the original purchase price of Model 3 trade-ins. Because I think they're really defining like a new category here. I look at it as, I've heard this iPhone moment kind of thing with cars the last week, whereas like before the iPhone, right, people bought $50 phones every 2 years, right? You bought the little flip phone and some of them were free. I think I got free phones.
Most
Like
of
you
the
sign
time,
up
yeah.
for 2 more years
Yeah.
with Verizon and you get another, free. And then out of nowhere, Apple came and said, yeah, these phones are $600. And people started paying that. That was it was creating a new market. And look at this original purchase price for Model 3 trade-ins. Keep in mind, everyone who got one last quarter was paying at least $50,000 for the car, right? Over 50% were less than $35,000 cars. Original price they were traded in. And then you look, I mean, the numbers in between, they got 35, 40, 40, 45, 45, 50, all less than 10% or around 10%. And then you see the $50,000 plus, which is like trading a comparable car, was almost 20%. But I would like to see them break that number down. How many of those were S and X's being traded in for a Model 3?
Yeah, just people with the original generation
Sure.
SRX
Right, yeah.
that would definitely appreciate some of the upgrades. I'm not saying it's a better car for everyone, but
Right.
for some it will be. Yeah.
Right. But I think it's a thing where, like, you could see people paying $10,000 more easily than they would have otherwise paid for a car. And I was thinking about myself. I mean, it definitely applies to me. When I bought a Model S 3 years ago, I mean, the other cars I would have thought about would have been $35,000 cars. Now, I wasn't comparably shopping a BMW 7 Series or a high-end 5 Series.
Right.
I wasn't. I mean, other cars I would have thought about would have been in the $35,000 range. So it really created that market. I would have spent that money on something else, not a car,
Yeah, I think that's a part of that is the customer who wants to originally budgeted 35. They're like, well, I can stretch to 45 because I'm gonna recover that through. In essence, I'm paying up front because I have such low energy cost to run this car versus the energy cost for the gasoline car. So I can see they factor that. But there's just a part of me that's a little concerned, just to be like, the debt that the buyers might be taking
Right.
on that they didn't
Right.
previously take on.
But I don't know if that's Tesla's problem.
No,
right?
not Tesla's problem, but just like, just in general in the
People in
world,
general,
that could be a
right,
concern. Yeah.
Right.
It's probably good for the banks too, though. The only thing they have to kind of look at, right? They just announced the new mid-range Model 3, the smaller battery pack, which was a completely
Unexpected.
Right.
unexpected thing.
Right.
And it's like they're trying to get to the 35. At this point, it seems like they are trying to. They could probably, if they're pulling 20% margins, they could probably profitably make that $35,000 car right now, or very close to it. But I think it's like, why would they, when they can still sell the more expensive car, and maybe upsell a couple more people,
I got the impression reading the news, the mid-range is that the battery pack structure is the same, just removes some cells. So low engineering effort. I mean, I'm sure it was, for the actual people working on it, a
Right.
high effort, but, from casual observer, in comparison to have to. I understand that what they have to do in order to do the standard range battery pack will be kind of a re-engineering of the battery pack versus just pull some cells out. So that seems like it's this thought of, hey, we can take one step towards 35,000, and I think it's a good demonstration to say we're headed that direction. Please hold.
Right.
We're going to get there.
And where the bear argument here, that the still little existing Tesla shorts and that might say is the issue is, well, how close, like you were mentioning before, they're running up against factory constraints at this point. They said the last quarter they did 5,300 cars, Model 3s, in Fremont there, where, the quarter before they rushed to that 5,000 total, which I think was like 4,000 Model 3s and then like 1,000 S and X, or I'm trying to rack my brain for that number or something like that. So they're probably at like over 6,000 total cars. I didn't see that number. It might be buried in here somewhere. But that's probably pushing up against what they can do. I think they said like 7 is the number they're targeting long term.
7,000 a week.
Yeah, but if those cars all start becoming the $35,000 version, which, at what point they're probably a large percentage of long-term sales, right? The Model 3 is probably a 10-year product at least, like this basic design of it, and might see an upgrade at some point. But where's that sales price, final sales price going to kind of finish out at? What percentage of people are we going to get that 35? And that's obviously going to drive margins down.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, they're going to get cheaper and cheaper making the batteries. So
yeah.
They're going to, it seems like this quarter to me, and I've been following Tesla for a long time, is like, I mean, this was huge. Like, they were like, they can probably do this long term. And that's always been somewhat of a question, Well,
I think the wasn't it like the Leaf and the Volt were really close to approaching $40,000 cars when they were brand new, and that Leaf was a range of I don't remember, but let's just say 85 miles.
Right.
And now we're in a stone's throw away of 40, like, was it 45 or so for this mid-range, and it's 260 miles range.
Yeah.
With a objectively better design.
It's a
Right.
better car.
Yeah, I mean, that's still you're still forced into the premium upgrades of the interior at that price.
Right.
Once you get that's another thing they could do if they can kind of. I'm not sure they will, because that seems like a high margin item.
Yeah.
But if they can let go of that $5,000 package
I'm
and
sure
allow people to order,
it will
that,
happen. I mean, they're going to keep engaging people and trying to get towards more people. They did say, I'm trying to find this exact quote here. All right, let me try to do it off my head because I won't do it here. But they said the last announced, here it is. The last announced net reservations they reported in August 2017 was 455,000 net reservations. They said less than 20% of it canceled. They're expecting most of the remaining reservations to gradually convert to orders as we launch more versions of the Model 3, introduce other financing options, and begin sales outside of North America. So there's the other thing. I mean, they haven't touched outside of North America sales yet.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I mean, there's a lot of that coming. So anyone who says, oh, the demand's just going to fall off, the U.S. demand could go down. I could see that a lot of people that wanted this car for a long time have got it, and U.S. sales might fall in the interim. But, I mean, they got a lot of other places to still explore, and they have a lot of, what did you call it before, triggers? What did you call pricing triggers? Or
No, I don't.
levers to pull.
Oh,
Pricing
levers.
levers.
Levers, yes. We should talk about some of those levers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned one of them, the mid-range battery pack.
Yeah.
For the Model 3 it seems like a lever to pull. You're engaging more customers, right? You're going to convert more. But then,
A lot of people probably have, like you said, utmost max they're willing to pay for a car. Whether they've figured out the monthly payments or they're paying in cash or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They have an ultimate, I'm not paying more than that for a car, period, number.
Yep. And this obviously opens that door to some more people because it meets their maximum. And then, but for those who have a little bit more to spend, can we talk about this other lever, or are we saving that for later?
No, yeah. Bring it up.
So the performance version of that Model 3, they reduced the price by effectively reduced the price by $5,000. because they used to have this optional $5,000 package that give you a few more bells and whistles, like the bigger, prettier wheels, the upgraded brakes, and actually I don't recall what else it had, but probably had something else in that package. And it was costing $5,000. Oh, here it is. Okay, so brakes, carbon fiber spoiler, lowered suspension. Who doesn't want that? Aluminum pedals for the go pedal and the stop pedal, and then a top speed increase. So yeah,
And this is for, I don't know if this is for the, you might have said it, but the
Model 3 Performance. Yeah,
right.
So this used to be an optional package to get all those upgrades, and they charge $5,000. So now they've decided, oh, you know what? We're just going to throw all those upgrades. Every performance gets those upgrades, and we're not going to charge to $5,000. So I think most people were probably opting into that package because if you're that far in, you want the kind of ultimate performance that package would have offered you. So I think I can only imagine for the majority of those people who already purchased this, a little frustrated on the price change.
Yeah.
But this is the lever that Tesla's trying to pull. Say, how do we get more people in on the top spec Model 3?
And their margins, I mean, if there's 20% overall margins, I didn't see the number published, but I bet it's
even higher
definitely
there.
higher on this model. I mean, that stuff doesn't cost them $5,000 for them to do. That's just an upsell, right? And it's all about getting those upsells in those profit margins. So
Yeah.
if they said, hey, we can give this $5,000 away for free, essentially, and still maintain 20% profit margin on the vehicle at a higher price point than if we're selling someone a $50,000 vehicle, it's still a $70,000 vehicle once they throw autopilot on it, right? Why not do it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the lever that you're pulling. In the previous version, it's like, oh, people that were already into a Model 3, but they're like, you know what, I'll be satisfied with the all-wheel drive. It's an awesome car, that version. But now they're like, oh, now I could get the ultimate in performance for, not as much. So it's like what the lever is doing is a shift in product mix, not necessarily, I don't believe, more demand for Model 3. I think it's a lever for a shift in a performance, like more performance upgrades. Yeah,
Sure.
overall.
And on a sort of related note, and it came up a lot in the conference call, and was they removed a menu item that had been kind of controversial, and that was for the last 2 years or so, they've been selling the full self-driving feature, clickable on the builder on the website, and they removed that. And the initial reaction, there's initial reaction of, well, because they can't do that. And it was explained, it's still an off-menu item. So if you call Tesla up and say, I want to pay for it right now, they'll take your money. But they're saying that basically the difference is, right now they're on version 2.5 of the Autopilot software. And they're going to call...
I think that's, would you say the hardware for
the
2.5?
hardware. Did I
Yeah.
say software?
Yeah.
Oh, hardware, yes.
Yeah.
And 3.0, they say, is going to be the same exact sensor suite, but the new in-house built processor computer system. And they're saying like spring next year. And they said anyone who paid for full self-driving, we're going to swap out the computer. That's all it is. It's just the computer, a new processor that's like 10 times faster than something like that is the number they're giving. And they say that's all that's going to be required long term. They kind of said that before with 2.5. So,
right, yeah.
This was 2 years ago or so they made that initial announcement, but they've probably done a lot more research on it at this point. So, they said they will just swap out that computer. And otherwise, if you have a 2.5 suite, you'll be able to still pay when that becomes available. It was just too difficult to explain in the sales process, which makes a lot of sense. People that haven't been following Tesla like we have, that's probably kind of hard to understand.
Yeah. I'm still feeling a wait and see on that.
Sure.
At any cost. I don't want to give a loan out to
That's what you're doing.
on a hope that they're going to deliver on their promise to upgrade the computer.
Right. If
Because
that
they're not
computer-
providing that in writing.
And I mean, that's kind of what you're doing when you're an early adopter. You're putting
Yeah.
money out there. It's
Yeah.
always kind of a gamble, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel good with the money I put out so far, but not no more at this point. But on the positive note of like what I say is a step towards full self-driving is, and we can speak to this in this is version 9 software for our cars is coming to mind, and I know we want to talk about that a little bit more, but the one preview out of Full Self Driving is that it now has the awareness all the way around the vehicle. So now you, like, as a driver, you can see it's now using all the cameras.
Right.
So it's now processing data on all the cameras.
Right.
So that processor is working harder than it's ever worked before. And so at least, you know, there's some confirmation that there's work going on into this. And maybe it was doing that before and it just wasn't showing it to us, but it feels good that they revealed proof to us that they're moving in that direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, as far as profitability from the quarter, I don't know how much more we're going to touch on. Do we have?
Feels good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you hit us some good stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of a car show, so they get into the energy products a little later into it. That they did really good as well, kind of outperformed. Introduced some new options there, including a storm watch option on Powerwall, which recharges when it sees a storm coming. That sounds cool. It makes sense.
Great software.
Yeah. So I mean, even the Powerwalls get software updates over time. I'm sure that's going to continue. So that's very cool. And then just a bunch of hard numbers. And I think Angela specifically told me I'm not allowed to do
She,
massive amounts.
she's thinking of you, readers, or readers, listeners.
numbers.
I'm sitting here trying not to fall asleep. I can only imagine what some of you guys are doing right now too.
All right. So
I was
Hey, you know, I just thought of something. Are you done with your numbers talk?
I think David.
I'm good. I'm good.
What's he
Okay.
saying?
something may come back to me, but
That's
go
okay.
on to your thing.
I was gonna say, you know, something I thought of. We didn't discuss this ahead of time of discussing it, but a little update. You know, a little shout out to our local service center is. I think at our last podcast, Cam and I both mentioned that when we took delivery of our cars, we were kind of not sure what license plates we were going to end up with, because here in Oregon, when you sign your paperwork for the DMV, when you're picking up your car, supposedly there's a place that you check of which license plates you want, but we didn't see that on ours and thought of it afterwards or asked them there, and they weren't entirely sure what to do about it. And for both of us, they just took a note and said, you know, we'll do what we can. Both of us got our plates this week, and they were the correct ones. So
That's great.
Yeah,
They're
shout out to
following
them
through
that
on the
they-
details.
They followed through on that. Yeah, I mean, overall, our experience with the Portland Service Center has been fantastic. So I just thought of that while we were talking, that I should mention that it did pull through well. The other thing is that I had another issue come up with my car this past week. That this is on my Model 3. That one of the door handles pops when you open it, or pop it out to open the door. It gets stuck, and then when it's open in the open position on the door handle, you can't close it if the door handle's still out. So you have to manually push it back in and then close the door. And because this wasn't, it's on one of the passenger doors, and I hardly ever have passengers anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. But we just went online and scheduled a service request, through the online scheduling, and within just a couple minutes, the Portland Service Center had already contacted us just to get some clarification and kind of decide on the urgency of it. So again, another thing that I'm pretty impressed about with that. And
Great news.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think my Model S issue was since the last episode, right? Was it?
I think it was. Yeah, because I had just gotten my car back that day when we had
Yeah.
our last episode. So yeah, Ryan had
I'm trying to remember what the error message was.
It said battery coolant low.
Battery coolant low, which seemed bad. So we did not drive it, and I called them. I waited on hold. I got a hold of them. The 30 minutes hold. People complain about it a lot. I know it's been happening. I've read the problems that it didn't used to be like that. Obviously, it's a new world in Tesla. There's a lot of Teslas out there now. But we got it into the shop, and they tore the car apart, and they found out that we had some kind of rodent get in and chew through a sensor wire to the coolant. The coolant level was actually fine.
Mm-hmm.
And they did replace that. I guess that is not actually covered under my warranty.
Mm-hmm.
And they were
Rodent damage is not included.
not included. So they were. The original threat was, this is going to be an out-of-pocket thing. And I was like, well, there's like, you can definitely go to your insurance. I was like, well, okay, yeah, I'm going to fix it. So do it. Luckily, like an hour later, they found out there was just one other little chew bite on another wire, so they just replaced those two wires, and they did it complimentary, even though it was really outside the warranty. So props to them for coming through on that, and they gave us a Model S loaner for the day that did not have autopilot.
I have not
Or-
heard Ryan complain more about something than I did the 20-minute drive home from the service center that day.
Driving is so hard. Steering.
It was raining, and he's like, "Oh, I have to actually steer
bad.
and do this." And
Yeah.
so yeah.
All right. Well, as a transition, you know what I got to do.
Elon's Twitter claim of the week.
So Elon settled with the SEC, which included being babysat by the board, to not say stupid stuff on Twitter. And he's been better. He's been tweeting a lot, but kind of in control. And this was a response he had. It actually it was one that really made me chuckle. He said a bunch of weird stuff this week, but funny and nerdy stuff that wasn't really going to push any buttons for the most part. But somebody tweeted at him a headline. I don't know if it's a real article. It might be an Onion piece. I'm not really sure. But it says, Elon Musk successfully cosplays as a normal car company CEO. And he responded, "Hey, that's my Halloween costume." This was right after the earnings call, which was very muted and on point and seemed very responsible and mature, and maybe profitability did that to him. So props to him for being a normal car company CEO.
He just puts on like a normal looking suit and
He's
tie.
wearing a suit instead of a leather jacket, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So props to him for putting together a great quarter, and props to the whole Tesla team for putting together a really bang out quarter. And at least for the last couple weeks, to Elon being pretty mature and responsible as a CEO. Maybe the last month he was cocky because he knew the numbers. I'm sure they knew the numbers a month ago, or pretty good idea of the numbers. But congratulations to the whole Tesla team.
Yeah. Well, another thing he's tweeted out is that version 9 software, which launched since our last our last podcast. None of us, we haven't been doing it so long, we can't even say the right words today. Our podcast is, so we had new version 9 software.
As popular as this podcast is, we are not yet a publicly traded company.
No.
We don't have to report every quarter about.
And a recent one was that it was even getting better because this next feature called Navigate on Autopilot is coming. But before we even get to that, which none of us have yet, but we do all have version 9 software on our
Right.
cars, we can kind of speak to the experience of kind of this next generation of software landing in our cars, which is kind of just mind-boggling that we got features that we didn't have before.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
I mean,
Hey, my number one thing is they moved my little navigation prompts over
you had a
to
big,
left-hand side.
big complaint about that.
I loved
the last
it.
Episode.
I loved
yeah.
it. It moved it over, and I have to admit that it's a lot easier to see now when I'm driving.
I will say, as a at this point, we'll call it a legacy Model S with the Autopilot version 1. I feel they eliminated features for me in the version 9 software. The layout is nice. The UI looks great. But I was 100%. I always had my camera up. I got really comfortable with driving with that camera up, which I always saw as a big advantage to the Model S. That it's harder to do that with the Model 3.
I'm not a fan. I call it the Pukatron.
Yeah.
I
can't
agree.
have-
I
can't
agree.
have
I
that.
can't look at his screen when he's driving
Yeah.
because it
I
makes
like
me
the additional
nauseous.
scan. I've become used to it.
Okay, all right.
I've read
Works
other
for
people
you.
online like this feature too, and it to each his own. I get it. If you don't like it, that's fine.
I can confirm the internet agrees with you.
There's people that like it.
There's
There's people that
who
don't.
like it.
I'm one of the people that like it.
Yeah.
And it was always up top for me and map on the bottom because I drive my car for the most part around Portland here where I live, so I kind of know where I'm going for the most part. And then in the Model S, we have a lot more screens too, so we have another navigation
A
screen.
lot more, as in one more.
One more, right? But 3 more features
Yeah.
with that screen.
True.
So I have, my map up there. So I have another look at the map. It's 2 places to look at the map. So I like that as an additional place to clear, making a right turn because I'm never going to navigate on autopilot. So I can't have the car search that blind spot for me. So I like to look outside, look, at the camera, maybe a little at the mirror before I go over, like a triple check, just real quick. I can do that scan over and go. Now I can only put that at the bottom. And also, almost every time I have to reach down and select it. It doesn't necessarily bring it back up every time if it's even transitioned at all to the music thing, which it seems to do every time. And I think that music thing is a complaint you both have that I see a little bit too on the
So
the S,
speaking
but not
to
as much
your-
as I've seen on the 3.
So speaking to your camera on there, is that I did see posted just a couple of days ago that the next version, the next update, is going to have similar to the Model 3, I believe, where you can select and have your camera come up, and it will be, you can put it on the top, but it will be overlying your navigation.
Right. But in
So the problem would be if you needed to use your navigation and have your
so just out of curiosity,
face
have
of
you
the
seen
camera,
a
but-
photo of the?
yes.
So in the Model 3, what you're describing, because even in the Model S and X, it brings up version 9. If you bring the camera up, it comes up over the bottom, and just on the outer edges, you can still see the map.
Right.
Like it's just kind of floating over, which is kind of weird and seems like maybe a waste of processing power to even be computing that. But above it, on the upper half of the screen where the map still is, it still centers it, map navigation,
okay.
in the upper half of the screen.
Okay.
So the question is, if I bring that up, will it still then just center map navigation in the bottom half of the screen, which would be fine.
Right.
That
I
would
guess-
make sense. But my concern would be if it just floats it over like where the little red indicator
Right.
of the car currently is and where I'm going. That would obviously be a waste.
I
of
guess the
map.
photo I saw, I didn't really pay attention to that, so
Right.
I don't know. I know in the 3 it just completely covers
Yeah.
it.
Right.
But,
Because you only have one screen option
Right.
essentially in the
Right.
3, where in the
Right.
S and X you kind of have 2 screen options.
right.
Right.
I think that the way I interpreted some of the Elon Musk tweets on that subject was that it will do what you want.
Right. Recenter it
Yeah.
on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's coming. Just hang tight.
That makes sense.
And that will correct kind of one of those major complaints.
And before we get to the 3, which had more kind of current 9 was more developed for the 3, it seems. But the one other complaint I have, and I guess you guys can't do pen to drive yet.
Correct.
Okay, so I turned pen to drive on in my car.
You might want to just not everyone has a Tesla. What's the pin to drive feature?
Right. So pen to drive essentially means, I guess there's been a couple car thefts where, and this is common in all kinds of modern cars, not just Tesla, that they get kind of range extending devices that kind of just relay your electronic transmitter, that's your key now, and it can kind of just strengthen that signal, and it allows, say, if you park your car in front of your house, someone can come up with one of these range extenders and it unlocks the car and you can drive away in the car. Now, it was in the Tesla, you get one drive because then they can turn the car off. So you drive at one place and they could turn it off. But I think they kind of, some Tesla thefts, they got into, and it's very hard to steal Tesla. We won't get into that details exactly, but once you get it where it's going, basically you got to scrap the thing because it's got all kinds of sensors in that, so you're just scrapping it for parts. But some people, this was obviously a concern, so now it's almost like 2-factor authentication. When you get in the car, you then have to enter
Something
some PIN number that you know on the screen, which it's good. It's a good feature. I turned it on, just like it. It does add 3 seconds to the drive. Here's my complaint. I use Easy Entry, and it used to be when you get in the car with Easy Entry on and you just press the brake, it starts transitioning to where your seat is, which takes 5 seconds or something, right? It will not begin the transition from Easy Entry to my driving setting until I enter the PIN and hit allow. I feel like when I hit the brake, it should begin the transition to, it knew my key, so it knows me. When Angela uses her key on the car, it knows her seat position, it knows which one. So it could begin that position while I'm entering the number. It just seems like it does this boot up. I got to wait for it to boot and then hit the allow. It could kind of do that simultaneously. Just a small, minor thing, but it would be nice if it did it.
So I did find the picture.
Yeah.
And so they have 2 things pulled up, but it kind of looks to me like the navigation thing is just running in the background.
Yeah. Well, it did center navigation remaining in the screen right there.
I suppose.
That red dot is in the remaining, but you go to 3 things. How do you get 3
So
things?
I know you can do that now before you've gotten your update.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've not figured out how to do that.
I saw that on there too.
I'm gonna YouTube that later.
I was gonna
That's,
say I can probably search this some more for you too.
Maybe it's not as bad as you think, you know.
Yeah, I gotta figure out this.
My
trick.
Tesla divas are always pulling through for
Oh,
me
I
here.
gotta-
They always have all the information.
I gotta look into that.
The so is it mentioned a few Model 3 things.
Yeah.
But actually, I think some of these just equally apply to the Model S and X on the
2.5.
yeah,
Or
like-
2 or 2.5.
yeah, the newer autopilot hardware.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, just again that 360 awareness,
Right.
and it's showing you cars in your blind spot, car behind you.
Dancing cars hitting you in the
Which-
back. Right.
I
Yeah.
will say they.
It's
Yeah, the
Right.
the rendering needs some work.
Yeah.
and there's I don't trust it entirely.
Yes.
I've had some cars in my blind spot that have not showed up on there. But something I found that I really like it for, because I think I'm always going to be a person who's going to double check my blind spots anyway. Like
Yeah.
I just can't rely on technology enough for that. But one thing that I've really liked it for is spotting bicyclists. Around here in Portland, everyone rides a bike, and they don't always follow the rules or follow the traffic laws, and it's kind of nice to have that little like heads up out of the corner of my eye that there's potentially a bicyclist coming up beside me, even if I'm not like getting ready to turn or something, just to know that it's beside me, to make sure that I'm keeping an eye out for them.
Yeah, this is strength of the vision-based system
Yeah.
versus the like a radar-based. The radar signature of a bicyclist may not be
Sure.
as strong or
Right.
Pedestrians,
Right.
it shows pedestrians separately. It now identifies SUVs to cars. It's always done trucks. Well, at least for a long time,
A
it's
long
done
time it
trucks.
has.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely differentiated.
definitely
a
shows
lot more
different stuff.
Right.
It does city buses as well. There's
Does
a different
it?
graphic.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that.
School buses? Do we have school buses?
No,
yet?
just city buses.
Okay.
So they look like the ones that exist here in the Portland metro area.
That's true, yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So that kind of situational awareness. But something that's for sure 3 specific is the entry of the Energy app was introduced. So now we can do a little bit more accurate like energy monitoring.
And that's
during
very
road
similar
tripping.
to what the S and X has had.
It seems like an identical copy of the app. And then we also got the web browser. That's a
Yeah.
buggy app on
I
the
haven't
Model
even tried
3.
it, to be honest.
It works for once, then
It's-
after it fails, you got to reboot.
It's
Really?
always been very buggy on the S. I can
Okay,
tell you that.
well.
I couldn't tell you the last time I've used it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not using it.
Yeah.
But it.
have a cellular
I
phone.
tried just for fun. It failed. So those are kind of apps that were ported over, brought over to Model 3. So that's super cool, new.
Can I tell you my favorite feature I forgot about? That is also on your 3 and
Yeah.
also on my S.
What's that?
Lunar Lander.
Yeah. Atari games. So those must have gone to all the car. Well,
Yes.
yeah, all the
I think
cars.
it's just everything with version 9.
Yeah. Lunar Lander is also my favorite of the 4 Atari games.
I've tried all games. Lunar Lander is the only one I can keep playing and
Yeah.
enjoy.
Actually enjoy.
I actually like
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say the Missile Command I kind of like.
Okay.
It's second place for me.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I got to my destination about 15 minutes early, waiting for somebody last week, and I just played 15 minutes of Lunar Lander. It was great.
I am not
I'm not a Lunar Lander fan.
Lunar Lander or any sort of Atari fan. Sorry.
Yeah. But it was a fun addition.
Yeah.
Trying to think, something that is on these hardware 2.5. So this now requires 2.5. Is the Tesla Cam feature. So they're exploring. I would say beta would be the right software designation for a dash cam functionality in your car. It requires a USB stick be plugged in, and it records the video coming from one of the forward-looking
I will
cameras.
say too, as a version 1, driver, that seems like a feature that they could bring me, and that's about the only new feature probably I'm gonna really see from here on out. So I would like that to trickle down to 2.0 and 1.0. It seems like it's using the camera already. It can double record the camera. There's no reason it can't do that.
Store it on there.
Yeah.
And it's pretty buggy.
Have you tried it?
Oh yeah.
I haven't tried it
It's
yet.
pretty cool, but it fails pretty consistently. In essence, it's writing data error, and then the disk fails, and then it just can't record to that USB stick. So then you got to ticket the computer. You got to remove the bad data, and then you can bring it back, and it works again. So it's definitely the car causing the problem to the USB stick. It
Very-
just needs a
very
software
beta at
change
this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I have seen like cool just videos. I did have a phantom braking event in mid daylight, which was very unexplained. So shortly after that, I pressed the button. It saved that video, and I got back to my home, plugged it into the Mac, rewatched that video. Can I say what was happening? You could kind of see the phantom braking kind of as the car was slowing down unexpectedly. And there was a car in front of a car. I was following one car. There was a car in front of it, and it was changing lanes, and it was plausible that it could have been unexpectedly braking. I couldn't quite tell in the video that could have triggered, like, oh my gosh, we need to be prepared for what
Right.
could be happening. A car in front of a car. That may have been a cause.
There's just a question on the
Interesting.
video it records. Like a lot of higher end, aftermarket dash cams record like the speed of the car and that. Does it write?
It doesn't
that
have
on
it doesn't have data overlay.
Okay.
That would be an awesome
It seems
addition
like
feature.
Very easy,
Yeah.
something they
Yeah.
could do.
Yeah.
Easier than an aftermarket one could do it too.
Yeah.
I think the aftermarket ones usually rely
Integrated.
on like GPS and that. You could relay a lot of that, braking information like the energy chart it gives and the speed. They could
That
write
would
all
be
that on there
super
very easily, I
awesome.
would think.
Yeah.
So that's a new thing that comes to mind. What else? I'm sure there's far more.
Of the new things. Gosh. I honestly haven't had the time to explore it as much as I would like since I got it. I'm more just annoyed with the bugs that I have.
Yeah, what do you have?
So I think the the biggest issue for me is that my music no longer turns on when I get in the car. Occasionally it'll say loading error, but the vast majority of the time it's just off, and it says select on your phone, or I'm sorry, not on your phone. Select on your screen. I don't know, what does it say? Now I can't
Yeah,
remember.
something about
Something about that.
start the music on your phone.
Yeah, that's what it is. And so it's just kind of a pain in the butt that I have to go in and select it each time, and then like a handful of times when I do select, whatever radio station I want to listen to, then it says loading error at that point. The other thing is when I'm listening to music is it'll, go to the new song and it'll only play, maybe 15 seconds of the song, and then it'll go on to a new song. And it's been pretty consistently doing that. Interestingly, it seems to be the same songs that it does that on. I don't know why that is. But, and this is all on the Slacker radio. That's usually what I use when I'm in the car. So,
Same bugs.
yeah,
So it's not
that's my
just you.
biggest thing. Okay, well that makes me feel better. I think that's my biggest issue. David and I were talking before we started recording here that I'm having some issues with using my phone for entry, but we're not entirely sure that that's an issue with the software.
Yeah.
That's probably more likely an issue between my phone and my car, but
Just have to do a little troubleshooting potentially there. But a few features that come to mind is even more integration between the Tesla app and your phone and the cars now. You can start software updates remotely, so you don't have to get out of bed if you get a notification while you're in bed.
That's true.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Summon. Was Summon new with this?
No, it was already
Was
already
that-
there.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe it feels more elevated.
I was gonna say I just used it for the first time the other day. So.
The one that I think, if you haven't tried it, I highly encourage it, but I think you already know about this, is that on your phone now, in your preferred map app, you can send the destination to
Share.
the Tesla
You click
app
share the same
Right.
way you would text your
location.
information to a
So
buddy or
here's an
whatever.
interesting thing though, is if you have two Teslas, you have to make sure in your app that you have it selected on which Tesla you want it sent to, because otherwise it'll just send it to the one that is selected. I got in the car the other day at work and it already had my house like navigation going, and I was like, that's really strange. And so I mentioned it to Ryan when I got home, and he was like, oh yeah, I was out running errands and tried it out and put in our house address and didn't realize it sent it to my car.
As soon as I clicked it, it said information sent to Christian, and I was like,
wrong
oh,
car.
that's the
Wrong
wrong
car.
car. And then I
So-
realized that was the first step, because you just thumb back and forth between
Right.
the two cars. So you
So-
have to go in the app and thumb it up. That also applies if you tell Siri to turn your air conditioner on, turn your climate on.
Last used car.
Yes. Whatever's the one up in the app is just what it goes to.
I don't. There was climate control refinements actually on S and X and 3. I think general reaction S and X seem to be like, oh, I feel like things got taken away.
Yeah.
And then on 3, we're like, I mean, it's just
Yeah,
it's a different
It's just
graphic.
a different
To me, it was
picture,
like
yeah.
a UI update. I felt
Yeah.
it's like
You're
like-
okay with it?
Yeah, when you sync them, instead of still showing the 2 separate numbers, it goes to 1 number, and
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Same on both cars, all
Yeah.
3 cars now.
Yeah.
But then the new thing that none of us have, so I think we exhausted most of the major updates because I went through the list here. The new thing is navigate on autopilot, which is the
Yep.
thing we don't have, which
Right.
is the beginning of the whole on-ramp to off-ramp autopilot
Right.
capability.
And this is the first time I feel like, what is it? I mean, Autopilot 2.0 has been out for almost 2 years now or something, and this is the first time I feel like my car has lost really a feature that it's never going to get.
Yeah, just here's one that requires all that new hardware.
Sure.
And so the idea being is that it will you could turn autopilot on as long as you follow the directions here at the on ramp, and then it will merge off. I guess it will
Change
enter the
lanes as
highway from the
necessary.
on ramp,
Yeah.
and then it will suggest lane changes. You confirm them with your turn signal stock. So. It still requires your interaction, but you're going to see the
Wow.
lane suggestions.
At least for now.
Yeah,
Right.
let me try to find the tweet because somebody tweeted Elon about that. How long will you have to confirm before it does it? And his response was about 10 million test miles, which I don't have the data, but they're doing that really fast right now, I would think. I mean, that can't be 2 weeks, if that.
Well, you gotta. I was thinking it's 10,000 test miles
That they
of running
verify.
on
Oh,
Navigate on
using that.
autopilot.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
But it does seem
I'll
like
be-
that will go pretty quickly, given the number of cars.
I would think. All the
On the
model,
road.
every
I'll be
Model
really
3
curious.
and every SNX in the last 2 years. Yeah.
I'll be really curious to see how it handles situations like, like the stoplight that we have at the end of our on ramps during rush hour.
Oh, yeah. Here in Portland or
Oh.
in Oregon, and it's like that
In California.
California.
Yeah.
is when you get on an on-ramp, there's like the 2 lines, and then there's a red light, green light, red light, green light to let people
Mm-hmm.
go. Yeah. But highway to highway, I don't know of a situation that they have that. That's only like the initial entrance to the
Oh,
highway.
true.
right?
Yeah, you're right.
I
You're
don't know
right.
if like from one highway to an interchange to
Yeah,
another
that's true.
highway.
Yeah, you're right.
It does exist in California.
Does it?
So I can think of some examples.
Okay.
Okay.
So I mean, I think the Tesla response would be, you're still the driver.
Right. Right. Obviously.
But it's a really great call because in essence during peak time when you'd want to use this feature during
Stop and go traffic.
stop and go,
yeah.
like they're going to be activated.
Right, but to be fair, you're going to get in a line of 20 people in front of you in that busy time in California, and it's going to do fine until it's the first car up.
You're going to be the jerk that just
That
goes.
just goes with, yeah, you just go with the guy in
I
front
mean-
of you.
Ryan does that sometimes now, so
Well, maybe they're trying to mimic human behavior.
maybe.
So it does sound pretty exciting, though. I watched the official Tesla videos on this feature, and there's a new pleasant bong, like bing bong bong song. I don't know.
Bong.
I don't know what to call it.
Is that video they've had music to it? I think I must have listened to it on mute.
Yeah, so now you get a new pleasant chiming bonging sound when it's ending, when Navigate on Autopilot is ending. It also has a countdown to when it's ending on screen, but then when it's officially ended, it doesn't disengage Autopilot at that point. Autopilot's still running, but
It says
Navigate on
you're
Autopilot, it's
navigating
done.
now.
Gotcha.
It usually happens on the ramp, and then if you've been on a ramp with Autopilot, you know it's already been slowing down. But of course you have to apply the brake and stop it and take it out of Autopilot yourself. So it seems super interesting, and that whole choosing the lane thing is not just for the highway interchanges, which of course is part of why everyone's excited, but it's also around overtaking vehicles. So if you're on a 100-mile piece of your navigation plan, and it's just like the car in front is slower than the set speed for your speed, it will suggest the lane change to go around it, and then I assume it suggests the lane change to go back.
It doesn't just stay in the left lane.
Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless it detects the traffic in that lane continues to be slow, in which it will keep
Right.
passing
Right.
cars. Yeah, which is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's some version 9 stuff. I think we covered that pretty well. I'm sure we'll be back to talk about it, especially once we have experience on
Right.
navigating on autopilot.
Yeah.
Cool.
Other than that,
Going back to Summon. Have you used Summon in your car yet?
Very briefly. I don't have a lot of practical uses for it.
Yeah.
it's a.
We used it the other day in my car, and it didn't work nearly as well as it
I will
does in
say,
his car.
I will say this is having a key fob big advantage because I've had Summon for 3 years in the S, and we use it to get in and out of the.
Our garage is tight.
Yeah, get
like
it-
even
I have
right now,
found
so.
using the app to Summon for the last 3 years is pretty bad. Just the connection, like it'll sit there and it'll say connecting, and then half the time it doesn't even connect, or it'll say like key fob needs to be closer, which I assume isn't the issue in the 3 because it's not trying to do that. It's probably trying to connect to the internal Bluetooth. I'm sure it works a little different in the 3. But it just always has issues. It had in my S using the app, and with the 3, I've seen it took us a long time to get it in and to get it to connect. Where the key fob on my S works very well to control the Summon. So it is a big advantage, I think, to have the key fob with Summon.
I think something very strange is that it seems to be far more reliable when the car and my phone are both on LTE. When
Not on Wi-Fi.
when they're all on
Interesting.
Wi-Fi, it seems to misbehave almost to the point of it just never works.
Yeah.
the unfortunate thing about that is
That's
that's
95.
when
When
I'm
you're
using
home.
it and trying to pull into our garage. It's going to
Totally
be connected
agree.
to our
Yeah.
house Wi-Fi. So
Like if you're out in a parking lot trying to show it off, I feel like it works. If I'm at home,
I haven't
It's not,
tried
it's
that.
not a practical application.
Yeah.
It's just a like, hey, look what I could do. Right?
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Well, I mean, there's certain parking garages we've used it for.
Yeah, but then, I mean, in a parking garage, my concern is if I'm going to summon, the only way I can get a car in is I can summon it. I don't trust the guy parked next to me to
Well,
not
remember
dig
that
my
time we
door
were in Seattle and it was just two
against
pillars.
the wall.
It
A
was
pillar,
like two
that's
pillars,
a different
yeah.
scenario. That's a different scenario.
Yeah.
But a lot of those scenarios, yes, I could fit the car by summoning it, but the guy in the car next to me is going to ding my door when he gets
Right,
in there. So
right.
that's kind of stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm sure we're a number of minutes in.
I think we're good.
Should we call this one?
I
Let's
think
call
so.
it. We'll hopefully get Cam back next time.
Yeah. Thanks
Cool.
for listening, and
Yeah.
we'll all have experiences, Cam included.
Yeah.
Some of this new software stuff.
Except me. I'll just be version 1. OG.
We'll let you drive our cars.
Speak for yourself. Just kidding.
You can come drive mine.
Perfect. See everyone next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Engine on hum, and I'm driving an electric, helping out the planet, plus I'm feeling real sporty. New type of swag, looking cool when I'm 40.
Supercharged Podcast is presented by David Zygmunt, Ryan Vinton, Cameron Larson, and Angela Vinton. Portions of Dippin' in My Tesla are courtesy of Jay Brave. Copyright 2010. Lufam Pro Entertainment. Visit us on Facebook by searching Supercharged Podcast, on Twitter @SuperchargedPod, and Instagram @SuperchargedPodcast. Have a question or comment you'd like to hear on the show? Call our hotline +1 657 845 1673.